Hi, Dawgpound South campers. This is the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sport Network. I'm your host, Steve Gill. It's been a while. Been a little busy with tax returns. You know, that's what I do for a living. If you look right over there, there's a stack I've got to do as soon as I'm done with this podcast. All right, we've heard a lot as we await the news. If the Browns are going to play in Brazil against the Eagles, I've already said in the past, I am all for it. I would rather face the Eagles on a neutral field than in Philly, which leads me to my topic of discussion today. Right now, pre-draft, we're getting power rankings and we're getting win totals from Vegas. I really don't know why they do this early. First of all, the schedule has not been set. That'll come after the draft. And number two, the draft hasn't happened. Teams can get better in the draft. Right now, the Browns roster is pretty much set. They can roll out a 53-man roster today. They don't need to draft to have a starter. They can roll it out right now. They've got their team ready to go. Okay, so let's look at the other teams in the AFC North. Win totals. You've got Baltimore at 11.5, Cincinnati 10.5, the Browns at 8.5, and the Steelers at 7.5. I'm a little bit disturbed by these things. First of all, everybody's crowning Baltimore already. I've even seen listed as second best team in the NFL. I don't get it. I just don't get it. They still haven't signed three starting offensive linemen. Yes, they got Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has been used too much here in Tennessee for the Titans. So I'm not buying that. Like I said, I still think Lamar Jackson will have more rushing yards than Derrick Henry. On defense, they lost their defensive coordinator. They lost the guy who was going to replace the defensive coordinator. Then they lost the guy who was going to replace the guy who was going to replace the defensive coordinator. Plus, you add Clowney went elsewhere. Now, everybody remembers his second year in Cleveland, and he was terrible, and he was pouty, and he didn't want to play unless it was a passing down. He was stat driven, and he's always been money driven, but he got his 2-year contract in Carolina. So I guess he's happy, but he was with one of their productive players. They lost Geno Stone in their secondary, and they lost Patrick Queen. I'm not buying the Baltimore Ravens as the second best team. Yes, they still have Lamar Jackson, the MVP, but second year in this offense, I will put money that NFL defensive coordinators will figure this offense out pretty quick because that's their job. Cincinnati at 10.5, and they always couch this with if Joe Burrow is healthy, because the last 2 years he got hurt in training camp and he wasn't healthy. They did improve their secondary. They took care of a major problem with safety. They brought back Von Bell. But they got Geno Stone. A big improvement. Their problem is they have T. Higgins as a malcontent. Now, if the Cincinnati Bengals are able to trade him during the draft, a la A.J. Brown with the Titans when they trade him during the draft, then yeah, I could see 10.5. But they're all saying it's based on Joe Burrow's health. So then you get down to the Browns at 8.5, who return a top 10 roster in talent. And they say that they're at 8.5 because of the health of Deshaun Watson. Well, if Deshaun Watson plays the entire season, they're going to be over that 8.5. They've improved in defense. I don't care what you say. Quentin Jefferson is much better than Jordan Elliott. The linebacker position got better. I know I liked Anthony Walker and Taki, but the guys that got to replace him, I mean, Jordan Hicks is coming off 5 straight 100-yard tackles, and he's better in coverage than Taki. And they're returning a secondary that was number 2 in the NFL. On offense, yes, the offensive line is question marks with Conklin and Wills and Jones all coming off of injuries. But if they can stay healthy, you got to remember this team won 11 games with 5 quarterbacks and 26% of their roster on injured reserve. The offense will be different, and you can tell that by the way they are signing people. Jerry Jeudy was 6th in yards after the catch with receivers with 80 or plus more receptions. The Browns last year were 28th in yards after the catch. And you look at some of the wide receivers they have talked to draft eligible. Malachi Conley led all college football in yards after the catch. So they're gonna run that. They're gonna do short, intermediate passing and let the wide receivers do the rest of the work. Finally, and I'll get to this after the break, the run game. Everybody's worried about the run game. They're not going to run the ball more. They're going to spread everybody out. Well, Dickerson, their new offensive line coach, when he was with Seattle and was the run coordinator on offense, Seattle had the best yards average. I think it was over 5 yards 5 yards a run in the entire NFL. And then you look at the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, when he was with Carolina as the quarterback coach, they went 15-1, went to the Super Bowl, and Cam Newton was the MVP. Well, you ask, what does that have to do with running the ball? Carolina was number 2 in the NFL in rushing yards. That's what it has to do. You can still run the ball with your quarterback in the shotgun. I hate to tell you this, it's still possible. You can still do it. Ken Dorsey proved it at Carolina with Cam Newton. Forget about that. Okay, they're going to run the ball with or without Nick Chubb. And anyway, they signed Dante Freeman is an excellent running back, as is Hines. So, I'm not worried about them running the ball. Pittsburgh at 7.5. Frankly, I think that's a little low. They got better on defense. They got a lot better on defense. And they're already pretty damn good at defense. Patrick Queen is a stud. My only concern about them is at their quarterback position. And I've said this before. Russell Wilson doesn't scare me. Justin Fields doesn't scare me. They both hold on to the ball too long. Since 2021, Justin Fields led the league in sacks allowed. 135. Russell Wilson was second with 133. Still not convinced on their offensive line. Sorry. But, they got Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season. So 7.5, I guess Vegas thinks that this is going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. That's the way the AFC North stands up. Now, let's look at the opponents that the Browns have this year. Frankly, none of the away opponents really, really scare me. I think the toughest away games are going to be at Pittsburgh, at Baltimore, and at Cincinnati. And by the way, Joe Burrow, how many times has he beaten the Browns? Not that many. I think 1, 2, maybe. I don't know. But then you've got at Denver. I have no idea who their quarterback's going to be. Washington. Now, Washington may be a little tougher than people think. They spent a lot of money. I still don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Philadelphia, hopefully we'll catch them in Brazil. Jaguars at Jacksonville. That might be a toughie. The Jaguars have loaded up to try to keep up with Indianapolis and Houston. And Houston right now is just killing it. Thank God we don't have to play the Texans. And at the Raiders. Don't know what's going on. Gardner Minshew is going to be their bridge quarterback. They don't really scare me. The tougher games coming home. Besides the AFC North, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, they host the Chargers with the savior Harbaugh. The Chiefs, that better be a primetime game. Kansas City at Cleveland. They host Dallas which I have no clue what they're doing in free agency. The New York Giants, they don't scare me. And the Dolphins, which, and when's the last time Tua won a playoff game? Anybody know? I don't know. So these win totals right now, I'm sure they're going to change after the draft. Unfortunately, Baltimore and Pittsburgh draft extremely well. So I would assume Baltimore is going to throw in an offensive lineman. They may sign one later, a veteran, see if they can pick somebody up. They may trade for one during the draft. That wouldn't surprise me either. Pittsburgh always drafts well. So I cannot see, bottom line, I cannot see where the Browns will only win 8 games. Right now, I can't see it. I'm going to wait until after the full schedule comes out and after the draft. I may revise my thinking, but right now, as I put it, the Browns have one of the best rosters in the AFC North right now. They can play a game tomorrow and not have to worry about it. All right. So that's it for today. I appreciate you watching, listening, and following the Fanatical Elves Network. We're here because of you, and we know how much you are great Browns fans because we are fanatical Browns fans. So this has been the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. And I will probably see you later tonight on the Fanatical Elves show. Woo, we're back to recording now that basketball's over and John's back from a European holiday. So everyone, have a great day and go Browns.